What's up, guys? It's your man KP67s coming back to you with another video today, another character review, and we're going to spice it up a little bit and start talking about a specific subset of another faction, the Separatist faction. Now, you have components like, you know, Ventress, Dooku, who belong to other factions like the Sith or the Night Sisters. You got Newt Gunray, who's just kind of hanging out. You have Sunfac, the Geonosians. They're just kind of there. They're there for ships, but that's another video. So today, what I wanted to talk about specifically is to talk about the most recently reworked part of the faction, the Separatist droids in this case. And I figured who better to start with than the man or machine himself, General Grievous. So, General Grievous is obviously an attacker. He's also a separatist, and funnily enough, he's a droid. You know, if you've ever seen the Clone Wars, he really doesn't like being called a droid. And when you look at his stats here, his stats overall are they're okay. You can see here that his strength, indicating his health and armor, it's okay. His agility for increased damage is also pretty decent. He is an attacker, it should be. And his tactics, obviously, special damage and resistance don't matter to him. But the thing here is that he's kind of this weird, I don't know how to call it even, like an oxymoronic kind of setup where his physical damage really doesn't matter. And his strength, the part that really matters, isn't necessarily the best. So here's how I generally have him set up. As you can see, I've got a lot of health on him, a lot of health, and that's because of the way that his kit was reworked. He has a decent amount of speed. Again, you don't want him crazy fast, lightning fast. You actually don't want that with Grievous, and we'll get into why. A little bit of critical damage, a little bit of potency, a little bit of tenacity. Not very much in the way of damage, boosting his offense there. His critical chance I could probably boost up a little bit more. His armor, as an attacker, doesn't really matter. And of course, as usual for a physical attacker, special stats don't matter. So, one of the biggest things that gives me grief about Grievous is the fact that his gearing is atrocious. You guys thought General Kenobi was bad? Oh my goodness, he needs 5 stun cuffs. He needs 5 hyposyringes. He needs 4 carbantes. He needs 3 stun guns. He needs 2 of those Gear 12 Plus furnaces. It is insane how much gear Grievous needs. He is a total gear hog, and it is very, very consuming of your resources. Honestly, that alone just makes me say, if you're not an endgame player, Grievous should honestly be the last thing on your mind. Completely 100% last thing on your mind already. But before I give a final verdict, we're gonna go ahead and go for his abilities too. Furious Assault here. So, like I said, they've completely reworked Grievous recently. So now, his basic now reads as dealing physical damage and inflicting healing immunity for 2 turns. He can't be evaded or countered, which is nice. Foresight won't matter to him. Countering won't matter to him. If the target was already debuffed, he deals extra damage, 30%. And then finally, this little caveat right here, Grievous's attacks deal damage based on his max health instead of his physical damage. Think along the lines of like Vandor Chewbacca, who deals damage based on his max health. Think along the lines of First Order Executioner, who deals damage based on his health. Grievous does the same thing here. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward basic. Obviously, the more health you have on him, the more damage you're going to be doing, so that's something to keep in mind. Next up, we come to Grievous Wounds. So, this is his AoE attack where he deals damage to everybody, again, based on his max health, and he inflicts target lock for 2 turns and removes 30% turn meter from his opponents. Now, there's a little bit going on here. Target lock is important for the Separatists and most droids in the sense that there's hidden synergy behind target lock, especially when it comes to the Separatists where they can gain a lot of healing based on damaging people with target lock. In addition, he's also doing a little bit of turn meter control. He's also hitting very, very hard. Again, a very straightforward, simplistic kind of effect that you're trying to aim for here. Next up, we have his other special, which is actually really cool to see, Skittering Horror. First, he gains health steal up, and then he deals physical damage, again based on his max health, to the target enemy and stuns them for a turn. Now, if they've already been stunned, they lose 10% of their max health, which can't be resisted, so that means that you can't ignore it if you're debuffed. And Grievous gains 10% max health for the rest of the encounter, and this attack again cannot be evaded, so Foresight can't stop it. Now, this is going to play into ramping up Grievous's damage. As he can use Skittering Horror over and over, he can keep gaining more and more max health over time, amplifying his damage overall for each attack. So this is mostly used just to kind of give you a little extra oomph, so that way his basic hits just that much harder each turn he goes. Next up is his leader, which received a complete revamp, so Daunting Presence. All enemies have minus 40% critical avoidance and minus 50% defense. Note that critical avoidance does not mean you're impacting critical chance. Critical avoidance is a separate stat, so as a result, if you're reducing someone's critical avoidance, it doesn't necessarily mean you're increasing your critical chance. You're not going to crit any more frequently, it's just that they can't reduce the chance of you actually critting on them. Next up, whenever a dark side droid ally is resisted, that droid gains 10% potency for the rest of the encounter and it stacks. When a target locked enemy is damaged, each droid and Separatist ally gain 2% turn meter, and Grievous gains double that. So for any droid or Separatist, so the Separatist droid army, they're gaining 4% turn meter, and Grievous gains 8. When damaged by an attack, dark side enemies lose 5% turn meter, that's pretty useful, and light side enemies lose 2% potency. Not necessarily useful, especially when you look at, Jedi Revan, where there's not really much in the way of characters requiring potency. So, I guess it seems like he's a little bit better geared towards controlling dark side than he would light side, oddly enough. And then finally, we get to his unique, which I have yet to Zeta myself, actually, Metalloid Monstrosity. So at the start of Grievous's turn, all other droid allies take damage equal to 8% of his max health. What? He does damage to everybody else, and then it doubles for light side droids. So if you're using R2, BB-8, L3, K2SO, they are getting 16% damage, equal, like 16% of Grievous's max health damage, which means, keep in mind, guys, his health is ramping up each turn. So overall, you're going to burn light side droids down very quickly on your side. And as he does that, he gains 5% max health and potency for each other droid ally for the rest of the encounter. And much like Palpatine's shock effects, this damage cannot defeat characters. So in a full droid lineup, you'd be looking at, I believe, 20%. I don't know if Grievous actually counts himself towards the max health boost, but 20% max health is pretty significant each time he goes. And then the actual Zeta component at the start of every character's turn, well, not quite the Zeta component, at the start of every character's turn, if Grievous is below 100% health, he cleanses himself automatically, and he inflicts marked on the other healthiest droid ally. And what you can get is this effect of marked jumping from character to character to character until it lands on someone, i.e. the droideka, who can't be damaged, i.e. damage immunity, which means that now marked sits on the droideka and doesn't move around. And then finally, here we go. Here's his Zeta component. Whenever a droid or Separatist ally is defeated, Grievous dispels all debuffs on himself, resets all his ability cooldowns, and gains a bonus turn. Which means every time you defeat a droid that isn't Grievous, you ramp him up even faster. this will eventually turn Grievous in a handful of turns, like 2, 3, 4 turns later, depending if you haven't actually killed Grievous himself, into just a wrecking machine where he by himself can just solo people left, right, and center. It could be a very, very good sight to behold. Obviously, I need to Zeta him myself, so I can't really say anything about that, but just on paper even, in theory, it sounds extremely powerful. So, now that we've gone over his abilities here, let's look at how you should be modding him. Now, CG has also made recommendations about the way that you should be modding him. Specifically, they had said they stuck with full health sets, so 3 health sets apiece, giving you a total of 6 health mods, as you can see. And then they gave him a critical damage triangle, and then they gave him health on the cross and the circle. I also, because I don't have the secondaries to kind of support it, I also gave him health on the triangle here to kind of boost him up. And 6E, when you slice these mods to 6E, are going to amplify his health from 5.88% to 16%. So my goal right now is to try to get to about 65,000 health when all is said and done, basically. Now, it's easier said than done. As you can see here, it's just health, it's critical damage, more health, just however much health you can put on Grievous, put health on Grievous, even at the sacrifice of speed. And even then, there's an explanation as to why I don't want him going very frequently, is the fact that he does damage to every other droid around him. So you have to kind of have this fine-tuned balance between keeping Grievous slow enough that he doesn't murder the B1 battle droid immediately, but also allowing him time to be able to ramp up. It's like a balance between making sure he's not killing B1 too quickly and ramping up his damage effectively. It's a very, very fine balance, and right now I'm finding keeping him significantly slower than a B1 battle droid does help quite a bit, especially if other characters like B2 can get their specials off quickly. If you're being attacked, if B1 isn't being trashed, other specials will give him turn meter and allow him to get maybe another turn in before Grievous actually goes. So keep that in mind, guys. There's a little bit of strategy when it comes to the Separatist droids in order to make sure you're not doing yourself a disservice. So, after talking about his mods here, how is Grievous supposed to be used? Now, there was a lot of controversy that went down over the last couple of weeks, over the last month in February, where everybody expected Grievous to be a Revan destroyer, which makes sense. He killed many, many Jedi in the Clone Wars. We never actually saw him kill any Jedi, maybe a handful of Padawans here and there, but overall, people expected him to be able to put an end to the Revan meta, and he's not really that good at doing that. The issue here is that you need to max him out. You can see here he gains a ton of health at Gear 12, guys. 2 med packs, 2 health furnaces. Like, that's a lot of health. If you're at the base Gear 12 level, you're only about 21 to 22k in health. That is not very much health at all for someone like General Grievous. So, really, he really is the epitome of an endgame squad. He and the Separatists are an endgame squad. You essentially need Gear 12 across all your Separatist droids. You need all your Zetas, basically. You need all your Gear 12 Plus, and you need really, really good tanky to crit avoidancy to damagey kind of mods. If you don't have that, it's gonna make those meta fights very, very difficult. Now, that is to say, though, that Grievous is very good at taking on non-meta squads. The First Order, Bounty Hunters, the Kira Prep Squad. Squads that are built to kind of try to outlast you can't, because as you let Grievous gain more turns, he's just going to ramp up and deal more and more and more damage. However, again, you're also hurting your droids at the same time. So again, there has to be a balance. So my overall thought process is, again, if you're not at the end game, if you have other squads that you can farm, if you have nothing better to do but to farm Grievous, cool, farm Grievous. If you have other options, don't go for Grievous just yet. You have other options that can work. You'll have other teams which can serve you in other aspects of the game, TW and GA, a little bit more effectively, and I'll talk about Grievous specifically when I'm talking about strategy, especially in Grand Arena one day. But suffice to say that I'm still tweaking. I'm still trying to figure out where he fits best. Me personally, I'm feeling he actually stands a better shot on defense than offense. And again, I'll get into that. But overall, I wouldn't invest very much into the Separatists. I wouldn't push to invest into the Separatists. I would just kind of sit back, wait. Maybe there'll be a new Separatist that comes along the line. Maybe you'll work them up if you really have nothing else to do and you want to build the B1 battle droid in Droidica and the IG-100 and the B2. So overall, guys, like I said, this is definitely kind of a wait and see if you haven't worked on him. But if you have, go all in. You'll have another fun squad, basically, to be able to use in big PvP game modes like TW and Grand Arena. Alright guys, that's my really long-winded, surprisingly I'm not coughing, review about General Grievous. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, let me know if you like the way that I'm slowly changing the format here, including bullet points. Thank you so much for all the love that was given to my Embo video. I really appreciate it, guys. Absolutely 100%. You guys are awesome. And I will be seeing you guys for another character review in a little bit. Have a good night, guys.